Today I want to talk about the Hebrew and the Norse creation stories. Now, there's some similarities and some differences between the two. However, they both talk about the creation of the world. Now, in the Norse story, there are two elementals, fire and ice, separated by a chaos. And chaos is in the beginning of the Hebrew story. But the Norse creation myths have been around 1,000 years, just like the Hebrew creation story. Now, there's similarities and differences, as I said, between these two stories, as well as in the Hebrew creation story between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. I'm going to talk about the Norse creation story, and then interspersed with the Hebrew creation story, and then finally wrapping it up with Unity's interpretation of the 7 days of Scripture, ending by tying it all together. Now let's take a cursory look at these two paths. In the Norse story, as I said, two elements, fire and ice, sit on opposite sides of each other with chaos in between. They begin to encroach on this chaos and eventually come together. From the meeting of these two elementals, a being is formed named Ymir. Now, Ymir is neither male nor female. Now, shortly, a cow emerges from that conjunction of fire and ice. A cow! Well, the cow nourishes Ymir, and Ymir in turn provides the cow with a salt lick, which also came from the fire and ice meeting. As Ymir perspires, beings, giants emerge. And the first giant is the god Buri. Like many creation stories after the initial creation, giants and dwarves appear in abundance. Well, we see the giants in the Hebrew story later in the book, the Bible. Hebrew creation story, Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void. God created the world from chaos." This is the first similarity. In the Norse story, Ymir is created first. In the Hebrew story, in Genesis 2, man is created first. But in the Genesis 1 version, Adam is created on the 6th day from the dust of the earth, and Eve is created from Adam's rib. However, the point is that life is created from life in both stories. Life is created from life in both stories. Now let us return to the Norse story. First comes Ymir. Ymir is not truly a god. Ymir is a hermaphrodite. and reproduces asexually. Now the cow licks on that salt lick and uncovers Buri. Now Buri has a son named Bor. And Bor was the father of Odin and his two brothers Vili and Vi. Now Odin and his brothers kill Ymir and create the world from her body parts. Eventually, the gods create man and woman from tree stumps, and they're placed in a garden which is fenced around to keep the giants out. Here's another similarity, the garden. However, the timing of the creation in the Norse myth is not given, just a sequence of events. The Hebrew story, however, discusses a universe that's created in 7 stages in Genesis 1. Though there's no timing given in the Norse story, so this is a similarity with Genesis 2. The difference here is that the Hebrew story is purposeful, and the Norse story is like a Norse saga. Some stories we deal with the creation of the world. That's the important similarity. Now I want to turn to the metaphysical meaning that Eric Butterworth, a revered Unity teacher and writer and minister, in his book The Creative Life sets out. Now, in his book, The Creative Life, he presents creation in those 7 steps, but demonstrates how we can all become co-creators with the God mind. With co-creators with the God mind. But it all starts with light. Eric Butterworth says, is there anything needed more than anything else? It's light. Light in terms of insight into ourselves, guidance along life's pathways, knowledge of the secrets of the universe, and the wisdom to use light and not abuse it. Now here are those 7 steps in brief. Let there be light. On the first day, God said, let there be light. This represents illumination, seeing things clearly. On the second day, God said, let there be a firmament. Now in unity, this represents faith. And faith is one of the 12 powers of man, as described by our co-founder, Charles Fillmore. It's our ability to perceive the reality of God's kingdom of good and divine ideas, despite evidence to the contrary, and then to use this ability to mold and shape substance. On the third day, God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. This is using our imagination. Imagination is another one of the 12 powers. This is the formative power of the mind that shapes thoughts based on divine ideas into mental images that have color, variety, and dimension. On the 4th day, God said, let the lights in the firmament above divide day and night. Now this is our will and our understanding, which are 2 more of the 12 powers. Will is the decision-making, choosing facility of the mind. It moves all other powers into action. Understanding is the spiritual intelligence by which we receive enlightenment and insight, our capacity to gain direct perceptions of truth. Now, on the fifth day, God said, let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures. This is using our judgment, another of our 12 powers. Informed by our spiritual understanding is the faculty by which we appraise, evaluate, and discern to make correct decisions. By which we appraise, evaluate, and discern to make correct decisions. On the sixth day, God said, let us make man in our own image and our own likeness. Now, this is wisdom and love. Two more of the 12 powers. Wisdom and judgment are the same thing. Love is the attracting, harmonizing, unifying faculty of the mind. Love is the attracting, harmonizing, unifying faculty of mind. The constructive building force of spirit. Our power to comprehend and oneness. So, we have seen that the creation stories, they can be similar and different. But we can learn from them important things. Life comes from life. We can take these stories and learn to use our divinity to create our lives. So let there be light in your life. Go forth and create a wonderful world of health, prosperity, and love. A life full of health, prosperity, and love. Create a world in peace and love, and let there be light. Namaste.